Great. So share my screen so we can start with a little introduction to what we are doing here. Cool. So today we're talking about systems mapping. Previously, this is our third session in these open discussions. We talked first about systems innovation, then we jumped into systems thinking, and now we are talking about systems mapping. And yeah, it's exciting topic, one that is very visual and people really enjoy systems mapping generally. So it's a very good topic to start discussing. And just a brief introduction. We are the Bristol Hub, so a local community of systems thinkers and practitioners here in Bristol, UK. And this is the core team. So myself, Hannah, and James are all present today. And yeah, we are the, let's say, the coordinators of the group. We try to organize some structures and create possible opportunities for people to come and participate in the group and create activities like these. But we also have, well, we jumped to the end of the presentation. This is not what we wanted, but we also have this great partners and associate groups where we discuss a lot about the structure of the Bristol Hub, and we ask their support about some initiatives, and of course their initiatives as well. We make sure that everyone have a say on that, and if everyone's on the same page, and if it aligns with the purpose of the hub and SI generally. So it's a great group to be involved with. So yeah, just to share that we are not alone in this journey, and that we have great people to support us. And in case you don't know, we are part of this group of hubs in the Systems Innovation Network. And as you can see, there are hubs all over the world. And we are here, we are the newest hub in this multitude of people. And we're really happy to participate in the Systems Innovation Network. So yeah, just to contextualize a bit what we're doing here. And yeah, we're talking about systems mapping today. And a couple of housekeeping points. This event is being recorded. It's going to be available afterwards in the YouTube channel. We have the chat function available in case you want to comment or make some questions. And yeah, if you are not speaking, please mute yourself for the better audio experience, but please don't hesitate to put your hands up and unmute yourselves if you want to say something. Please, we want you to say everything. Okay. So yeah, let's get started. And let's start with a question, right? To warm us up. So since we're talking about systems mapping, I would like to just start with the idea of map in general. Like, why are maps useful? Why do we have maps? And why do you think we created them? So I'll just start sharing some thoughts that I had. So I think maps are a very useful guide generally if you're somewhere that you don't know, right? Having a map would be useful for you to really organize yourself around the territory of that space, and then for you to find your way somewhere, right? So of course it's not the representation of reality, but it's a good guide to where you want to go. It's very informative. You can just look around and see, oh, there's a shop here and there's a shop on my map. So maybe I am around this area here, and then I can organize and get more information as I go along, and use that as a source of support for me to find myself in this new place. And of course, it expresses specific links and relationships with the space that you're in. Again, if you have that shop, then this shop is close to that that market that is close to, I don't know, the post office. So it means that if I go close to the post office, I can get somewhere else and so forth. So I think it's a very relationship, let's say, way of looking at where you are and then understanding more or less how to navigate in that space. But these are just some thoughts that I have. Why do you think it's useful, if you think it's useful, to use a map? Go on, Hannah.
Just from my experience of using them in the past, I primarily work across systems that are very reactive and where people get very focused on their individual areas, especially with delivery organisations such as social care or homelessness providers, drug and alcohol, criminal justice. They can all be very single-minded and siloed. And that's not to say that they wouldn't be good at systems thinking if they were given the space to do so, but they rarely spend time in that space. And doing a system map is just a bit of a moment. It's it's non-confrontational approach to just getting people to step back into the kind of contextual world of it and give them the space to do that. So I think that's a really useful tool for that.
Yeah, I lost my buttons for a minute. Yeah, that's awesome. We're going to say a couple of words related to that soon, but yeah, putting everyone on the same page in a way, right? This is the map, everyone, and you're not in, I don't know, South America and the other person is in the, I don't know, Asia somewhere. We're all in the same space, more or less, and this helps to start a conversation or to, let's say, filtrate some misunderstandings, I guess. But yeah, we can continue on that. Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think that definitely it contributes to laying the groundwork for avoiding some of the challenges that you can be confronted with when trying to approach system change. And that, I think you just gave a couple of really rich examples of that.
Awesome. And Timmy, I think you wanted to share ideas as well?
I do. I think when we're looking at maps, there are also two perspectives to look at. One is the creator of the map, because I'm often using maps to organize my thoughts about systems. So when I'm starting to think about a system, I'm going from point to point to point, but after a while it gets hard to keep everything connected to the system in my head. So the maps are basically the tool to write down, to describe a system and to see how the different parts, elements of a system are interconnected. So it's mostly a method to organize them visually. And that's one perspective. And the other perspective that I thought of is when I'm looking at the map, as a person who's using a map, I'm always firstly looking for a marker where the typical "you are here," so that I've got a reference point to base myself in the real world and to connect the real world to the map. And I think systems maps often need something similar to have a base where I can recognize my position in the system map and then connect my mental model to the model that I'm seeing on the screen. And yeah, this would be the perspective of a person who wants to recognize themselves in a system and learn something from a map of the system. And yeah, I think you can optimize for both perspectives, for creators and for the onlookers and readers, I guess.
Yeah, I love that, Timmy. Thank you. Yeah, I remember being in a session where me and the group created a simple systems map, and then someone else came to participate in a group once we have started. And the conversation for the people who started creating was a lot quicker and people were just engaged in it. But then the person who came was a bit like, wow, that a lot of a lot is happening here. I have no idea. Can we just start from scratch? So it's completely different ways, right, of understanding and being part of that creative process or process of creating the map. So very, very important point. Thank you. Yes, Hannah.
Yeah, just to, I mean, a reflection on that. I absolutely agree with your points, and I've had a couple of different experiences around that. So when we've done these visual guides, these visual maps before, and we've run events with them because they're a great visual tool for helping people conceptualize things, we've ended up with them all being poached off the walls because everyone loved them so much that they just wanted them in their office as a reference, which is great. We would just want them printed more, have them. But the flip side is I've also experienced people, and I've experienced very much seeing when people have done an exercise where they map the system and then they use it in like their slide deck to talk about their projects or whatever, you're just like, what is this? I can't deal with this. What's the purpose? It actually is a bit inflammatory. It's like it's such a mess, those big spaghetti diagrams that like yeah, and it's difficult to feel connected in with the work if you don't understand it. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I think there's an important point of communication of maps, that it's not just the design and the shiny object that you create, right? It's really about communicating important information. Is about allowing for conversations that otherwise wouldn't be possible just by talking like that from each other's perspective. So there's a lot of important uses of mapping a system that, as you're saying, Hannah, can just go in the direction of, oh, I created an asset here. Let's just wash our hands, everyone, go home and live our lives. So yeah, it's difficult. Katrina, yes.
Hi. I think I'm very new to this, so this I find it very interesting. And one of the things that I've found is that by doing some system mapping, you realise that it's a continual growth. It never stops, and it helps with, it's not just mapping, it's networking as well, because within that process you're identifying elements of the organizations and other communities, and with that you're going, oh, I haven't spoken to somebody in that, but they're connected to my business and my project. Okay, so how do I then reach out to them? And then you can see all the other interconnections. And I have found that you start from a single point and then suddenly it's like a massive spidergram which can become highly complex. And that's the bit, like Timmy was saying, it's holding it in your head. But from a networking point of view, it then becomes like a map. It becomes directional, because you're like, right, okay, now I can see something bigger. I'm in this point, but actually I want to go and speak to these people. I need to build up that relationship because I need to influence them. I need them to know that part of my system is connected with them. Are they aware of that? How is that working for them? And let me understand what's working for them. So it's also, an enabler. That's what I'm learning on my discovery from the 3 months I'm into system thinking. So I am that new.
Wow, that's amazing, Katrina. Thank you. And those are amazing insights for 3 months into systems thinking. So that's very good. Yeah, so everything that you said it's very important, and the word that you used there, enabler, I think it's sometimes forgotten, right? As we were saying before, you just get into the process of creating the map that then at some point you just miss out the bigger picture of why creating this map in the first place. And so let me advance, because I would like to comment on something else as well about, is a map necessary all the time? Is a systems mapping always the best way to go about things, right? Because it becomes this, oh, systems map, and then we end up putting systems map everywhere. But is it really the best tool to use? right? So this is something that I'm gonna come to it very, very quickly. But since this conversation is very high level, just skip through everything and we can just continue with the final questions. So with the systems map, I think you've said a lot of things that it's here. And this is from the systems mapping guide, systems innovation systems mapping guide. I put all the references in the end. You can have other references afterwards, but essentially is a way to reveal underlying interrelationships and structure of a complex system. You talked about that. Is a great visualization tool for you to be able to see some relationships that sometimes is just not that present when we just talk about things, or is not that noticeable when we just go through and discuss some topics with people. It's important, as you mentioned as well, because it creates a shared vision of the system. It's good to gain consensus about the problem and identify opportunities, right? We put everyone on the same page, and then from there we align the conversation, we align the language, and then the problems is not just your problem or my problem, it's our problem, and then we can be able to talk about that in a way that supports everyone's need in that space. So that's quite an important part that you mentioned as well. And systems mapping is about gaining an empirical understanding of what is before we engage in envisioning what could be or what we would like it to be. So just to get that overview of the territory, let's say, what is happening here, more or less, everyone? Can we agree that this is how the relationships and the dynamics are being created? And then from there, we can then move on to more practical, tangible behaviors, let's say, in the challenge itself. And you've mentioned all that. And then here again in the guide, the systems mapping guide, when to build a systems map, because it's not always the best tool, right? It's not always that you're going to use a hammer when you're creating your house. It's not always that you're going to use the ladle when you're cooking or whatever. So there are ways to identify if systems map is the best tool to use in a specific challenge. So when we want to gain a deeper understanding of the context and identify the gaps, if we think that we already know everything there is to know about the context, then we can just use other tools that are going to be a lot more practice oriented, let's say, than starting to build a map again, something like that. As you talked as well about the leverage points or the reference points, and intervene effectively in a system for high impact, to bring different stakeholders together, to co-create a shared understanding, mitigate the risks of unintended consequences of working in unexpected and counterintuitive ways. And I don't know if you know, but Hannah from the Netherlands hub, she's great systems mapping facilitator, and she created this this map to help us understand if systems mapping is the right method for the challenge that we have. And it's very useful. She updates this quite often, but I found this one that she posted a couple of weeks ago. So you can just go through some of those and see if systems map is really the right tool, because again, this is just one tool amongst others. So sometimes just communicating with people directly is the best approach, instead of going through the whole process of creating a map, because it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy. It's not that easy. Sometimes just going to the intervention itself is the best way to go, because maybe you already have the information that you need and so forth. So this is a good tool for you to start understanding where to begin in your, when you have a challenge. So I put the link as well in the end. But have you come across a situation where maybe people are asking about, let's create a map or something, and then maybe it wasn't the best approach to create a map, or the other way around, people wanted to just go to the intervention itself, and then you say, no, there are some things that we need to understand here first. And then the systems map came as a good tool to start this conversation. One of these, is this familiar to you as a challenge?
I'll just jump in and say something. Something I use a lot with in my day job is the business model canvas, which some of you guys might be aware of, and that is kind of like a tool to map sort of different elements of a business. So whether it's, you know, sales channels, partners, vision, mission, strategy, etc., kind of finances and stuff, like getting everything down on one page. And I think you know, we use that quite a lot, but some of the resistance we have to it is that it's too simplistic, and you know, it really can't get to some of the complex issues at hand. And I've had that pushback before. But what I always say to that is actually it's a starting point, and it's kind of there's a great phrase I love, which is all models are wrong, but some are useful. I don't know who coined that phrase, but I think it's a really good one, right? So the idea is this isn't a version of reality, but it's a useful model to help us look at relationships and have meaningful conversations, and kind of direct our attention to those things which are most important for our, you know, for whatever time we want to use to sort of achieve whatever we want to. So yeah, so a really good starting point, and can facilitate these useful conversations and can give you insights as well.
Yeah, very good point, James. Yeah, we, as Katrina was saying before, this is a process, right? This is an ongoing iteration of trying to get more information about what's going on and bring people together and have the discussion. So sometimes we have a tool or a method that's just really the starting point for everyone to get used to just working together sometimes, right? Or get used to talking about these issues that can be a taboo or can be quite difficult to address. So it's always important, really, like this point of identifying the limitations of the tools that we use. And sometimes it is just a starting point. Sometimes we need something a bit more advanced on top of that, or another tool altogether. So yeah, very, very good. Hannah.
I just would add to that point that, so my experience with these is contextualizing them is really important, because I think this might be different in different systems, but in the arenas I work in, there's a tendency to admire the problem because people don't often have opportunities to come around the table together and start exploring these things. And so contextualizing it as an assets-based approach or a systems-based approach, and like guiding people away when people inevitably start focusing too much on the problems, which just turns into a cycle that isn't really constructive, and actually can leave everyone walking away at the end feeling quite drained and demotivated. And so I think that was one of the risks with this tool, which can be easily mitigated with, you know, good facilitation.
Yeah, I came to understand the power of facilitation, but also understanding the energy in the room and the motivation. Is there enough energy for that? Should we start with something completely different? Not just throwing a map like that, and just create a map, everyone, and then we come back to it, right? So there's a whole process that needs to take into consideration when thinking about creating a map. It's not just as you're saying before, it's not just the asset itself in the end of the process, is the process, is the journey that requires a lot of resources, a lot of attention, a lot of creativity, a lot of investigation in some ways, and so forth. So it is, yeah, it's not easy for sure. Katrina.
Again, through my limited experience, what I've loved about system thinking is it's grounding me in some of the work I have done previously. So I work for a charity in the NHS space. So we deal with and we put interventions in. And just reflecting on the conversation we're having, I did a workshop with in the NHS, and it was based upon putting an intervention in. And what's really interesting is we had a lot of different stakeholders in the room, but we started with what is the problem we're wanting to solve. And we mapped the patient's journey, but overlaying that, we then looked at the system, because the patient had lots of different touch points, not just in the acute and primary, but in the community setting. So once we established what was the problem we were wanting to fix, which was the vision, which we all bought into and we agreed on, we were then overlaid the system mapping, which helped. But we already had an inspired group of people, because we're like, yeah, I think we've come to the root of the problem. Okay, well, where are the touch points of that root of the problem? Who is that influence? Who do we need to be talking to? Because we could see it from the patient perspective, which is very emotive. But then it was the overlaying of that system where you suddenly went, okay, well, I'm in the information center. Okay, well, which communities does this patient talk about? Oh, actually, it's Citizens Advice Bureau. Actually, it's the police. Actually, so you suddenly, because we were all then going from a patient's perspective and putting us in that shoes, we could then grow the system app, which created good energy. But if I had introduced that at the beginning, the energy would have been flat, because there wasn't that buy-in, there wasn't that shared vision. So I think it's a if you can use it and read the room, it's a really good tool to integrate with lots of others. But I would always come back with it's a journey in itself. And it's great if you're doing it on your own, because you can sit down, you can focus, this is where I am. But as soon as you bring in other partners, that's collaborative, you kind of need to bring that shared vision and that inspiration for them to go, well, actually, I know this part of the system better because I work in Citizens Advice Bureau, and therefore I understand the patient when they come to me. They go da 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 da, da and they go, and these are the touch points, and you suddenly identify other leverages. So you're pulling upon other people's expertise, but you need that energy, absolutely.
That's great. The part of asking questions that you mentioned, it's so important to start the process, right? Because you're going to frame all the effort based on the initial question that you had. And then if you have a very broad question, let's say, you're going to have a result that is reflective on the question that you had in the first place. So just speaking of Hannah again, really recommend Hannah because she's very good facilitator, and she understands a lot about systems mapping. And she's hosting this school, systems mapping school. And she basically goes through the whole process of creating a systems map. And is the first, I'm doing the course now with her. And the first part of the course is the question, right? Because that's going to frame everything else that you're going to do afterwards, the resources that you're going to look after, the information that you're going to put in your systems map. So having a good question is essential, and that can mislead or support the whole process. And it's not easy to just have a question of your own and then just put everyone else to do the work based on your specific reflection about what's going on. And another comment on that you said is our biases, right? We all have our biases and we all carry some type of a specific framing of the challenge depending on where we are in the system, right? And when we talk about collaboration, I think an important part of the collaboration is decreasing a bit of these biases so we can have a broader view of what's going on. Sometimes the question that we put in the first place is just our frustration of the system, right? And this is not going to be helpful. So if we talk to other people, if we collaborate, if we allow other people to intervene and ask questions as well about our inputs and so forth, we can have a question in the beginning that is going to be more reflective of the other perspectives that are in the room rather than just our own. So very important point. Starting the process with good questions is essential to be the foundation for everything else that you're going to do afterwards, right? Awesome, Katrina. James.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something which came to my mind, which is there's something about, and I'd be interested to know other people's thoughts on this. Like sometimes when you're looking at a challenge, people think, well, that must be created by something I don't know, or some new piece of information we don't have yet. So like a new thing which we've got to discover somehow. And that can be the case, but also I think which can be the case is like a lot of people know a lot of stuff, right, about their situation, about the challenges they face, but they are not very good at like processing that just in their heads. So like getting things out onto paper, we can begin to map things out and actually discover and uncover like that there's a lot of knowledge that that person has or that group of people have collectively and together, and that can reveal some of those insights. Like I've seen it happen in many workshops, like, oh, I didn't know that was why you did that like that, but now I know that I can maybe change what we're doing. And so it's like the answers to the questions or the challenges are often like there to be uncovered, like they're kind of known in a way. They're not some new kind of radical unknown mystery which we'd have to kind of work hard at solving. They're just kind of like in there somewhere. And if we have a tool like a map, then we can actually unravel the mystery quite quickly.
Huh. That's good. Any thoughts on that, everyone? I have some comments, but I've been talking a lot now. Katrina.
Sorry, I completely agree with James, and it's like I did some work where I brought people tend to have their head down and become quite focused on what they're doing, and I think that's where the system mapping is. And I think it's been quite fortuitous in my role. I was able to bring a problem to two very different organizations that wouldn't normally connect, and facilitated that, and just for them, and you could just see a ta-da moment of, I didn't recognize that. I didn't know that was what happened. And then suddenly there was this lovely organic process. Didn't need anything, any money or injection. And suddenly go, well, all we need is a simple email, and that can be a referral. And actually, these are the documents you need to use. And suddenly that sharing of knowledge and the relationship was bridged, and you just step back and you go back. So I think that's another thing of system mapping and having a wider perspective, is being able to bring other organizations and workforce that haven't worked in that way to just say, well, why don't we just have a conversation, and then go to the other partner and go, why don't we have a conversation, and just putting them in the same room and then let them flourish. And I think there's something really special when that happens. So yeah, James, absolutely. And I prefer those moments to other ones where you then go, you have to put some form of financial investment in, whereas quite often within a system, there is a solution in itself without having to do that duplication, just because of the wider knowledge and understanding that can be shared. So yeah.
Yeah, it's I was thinking about that concept of attentional bias, as James was saying, that sometimes because we are just too focused on what we are doing, as you're saying, Katrina, or the siloed work and so forth, that there's so much happening around that we really can't see because we're just too focused on what we are doing, that we miss all that important information altogether completely. So the collaboration allows to break these attentional biases, right? We just don't look at our own point of view when we don't pay attention to what we are used to. We can break some of these moments and be like, oh, wow, I know that this was happening. I wasn't really paying attention to it. But now that you said, I can recognize that this was happening, right? And there's that classic experiment with the people just throwing balls to each other. And then there's a massive gorilla passing in front of the camera, the video. And then when people are just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, that no one sees that massive gorilla in front of them, right? But then when you step back and you're like, did you pay attention to the gorilla? And people are like, which gorilla? And then you come back and you're like, how did I miss that, right? So this focus or narrow view, we undermine the actual the power of that in a way that it can simply get rid of important and rich information because we're just too focused. So yeah, I think what you're saying, the collaboration and the conversations can break some of these barriers, which is very important. So yeah, very, very good to just talk to people, as you're saying, Katrina. Just talking to people and paying attention and listening sometimes makes a massive difference to the direction of the process that we're going through in systems mapping and generally collaboration and leadership skills and so forth. So yeah, and Timmy, any light bulbs that you'd like to share with us, or just general feelings, thoughts that you had so far?
I can just agree with the last points I heard. The communication is really part of redefining a system and how the system is perceived along all the stakeholders that interact with the system. We often use goal target-based system maps in our workshops, which means that we map a system and then define kind of a value, a state for each part of a system, for where we see it now and where we want it to be. And having this as a second step after the building the main map with the elements is really another really interesting part when discussing with all the stakeholders that have any part in the system, because defining where the current state of each value of each target is right now is another really interesting discussion with our stakeholders, because oftentimes the perspectives are so different about what an element actually means and how its value is perceived right now, what the state is now, that we unlock a whole lot of new insights when discussing about not only what the system is composed of, but also what the state of the system is right now. And yeah, that's just a thought on top of the thought that we need to discuss and to bring different mental models as part of the creation of a system map.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's very easy for us to think that we know a lot. And we know what's going on, right? Let's just go and do it. But then the other person thinks that they know a lot, and we never know what is the point that is touching, right? What is the information that we are crossing, or that we could cross? And what we don't know is, I think, sometimes more important than what we actually know, because then there's a whole potential to advance into discovery, into creativity, that what we know is just very fixed and very limited. So that's why we always talk about the tapping into the unknown, and allowing for these conversations, because then there's more space for our understanding of what's going on to expand. We will never be able to know the system 100%, but we can know a bit more than what we knew yesterday, which is always very valuable. So yeah, awesome point. Thank you, Nitimi. And just to finish off this presentation here, I will just bring some examples that I thought, but I'm happy for you to share your examples as well. So here, very simple cocoa supply chain that, yeah, you have here the regulatory framework in brown, and then here in blue, consuming country, all the supply chain kind of process. And then with something like that, you can start to understand, for example, where the resources are coming from and going to. Where are we spending, for example, more money? Can we just spread this across the whole system? Everyone is being paid equally. Who is participating in here? Who is not participating? And so forth. So there's a lot of conversations and a lot of questions that can emerge out of the process of creating a map in itself. So again, as you're saying, this can be one point of cohesion. Like, we make this map and we discuss and blah, 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 and then we come back and we see what was this process. And then we can start drawing different questions or different insights about what's happening here, and then go back and work on the map again, on the process, and understand what's going on. Come back. What is now the state of the situation, of the challenge that we have, and do this iterative process, right? So this is, it can be applied to many different challenges and themes. So here, cocoa supply chain, for example, all the resources, again, and in the end, you can see them for yourselves. Then we have here Diliana. She works at the, oh my God, I forgot the name now. Reimagined Futures. And this is part of a project that they did, that I think the main question was, what forces account for the linearity or non-circularity, social and economic unfairness of food systems? So this is one map that they created to just start to understand the food system that they were involved in the challenge, and then draw other conclusions and advance on the project. So I have here the presentation. There are several different tools to use in systems mapping, right, that we could explore in a different session, but I can quickly just go through and share this one, because where is it? Here. This is the actual Kumu version of that map. So you can come here and just understand the relationships like that. And you can zoom in and zoom out and understand what's going on. It's a very useful tool. You can see the feedback loops and what is leading to what. It's very useful. So again, the link is in the references, and you can check that out in your own time. Other examples here are systems change process map. So mapping a specific process of systems change. So here you can see self-convening, prototype projects, system change outcomes, and then leadership networks, which leads to convening, and so here feedback loop. Then we have the funding here on green, capacity building programs, so forth. So different aspects of a specific systems change process. Here, I was a bit blurred, but it's one that I really like, foresight obesity systems map. So mapping the different components that are involved in obesity, right? It's not just lack of exercise. It's not just fast foods, as we normally hear about, right? There's so many different components here. We have environment. We have here, I think the family and the social, friends and family support and so forth. So there are different aspects of this, of understanding obesity that is very, very interesting. So these are the resources. So these are just some of the maps that I found that I thought could be useful for us to discuss. And here, just a couple of questions that we actually talked a bit about during our session. So if you have used systems map before, why and how? What are the limitations of systems maps, right? That we also talked about. And implementing systems mapping in projects and work environments, how would that look like? And what are the benefits of using them? So that was basically some of the questions that I wanted to address. But do you have any last comments about systems maps, or maybe questions that you'd like to put here for other people to jump in and comment? Any difficulties that you had with systems maps, James?
Yeah, I just think a good part of the conversation was about maybe those questions to ask, and so how you facilitate systems mapping workshop with sort of open-ended questions or encouragement, and kind of like not pointing the finger or blame and kind of all this sort of stuff, right? So the integration of those facilitation skills with like asking good questions, I think is a really important point. And also maybe just thinking about the timeline as well. So, how long might it take to do like an initial systems map? And it's probably something which will never be finished. So how long do you continue looking at it for? Is something you do in an hour? Are you doing the whole day? Probably the answer is that it depends, or it varies. But yeah, I think some it'd be interesting if people got some thoughts around those two questions, really. Like, yeah, what are good questions to ask, or how to facilitate it, and then kind of like, yeah, what sort of time period you might do a systems map for.
Floor is open, everyone. I can start just saying something. And it's more related to the second question, that first, I think what is the, for example, the question that you initially put, right, to create a systems map, you can say, oh, let's map the whole city of Bristol. Okay, great, but how is that useful? Like, what do we really want to achieve with that? Is it going to be the best way that we can do to create a systems map for that? So I think once you put an initial question and you start asking questions about why the question anyway, you start constraining a bit and creating the boundaries of the system in an implicit way. And that helps to just focus the process a lot more. So instead of taking like 5 months, you can take maybe 3, because the question is a lot more targeted and you know why you're asking the questions, and then the process is smoother, let's say, and cleaner, rather than, oh, let's ask this big question, this broad question, and then come back, oh, we put a lot of effort, but then now we don't know exactly why we're doing, let's go back and blah, blah, blah. So that takes a lot of time and energy, and people can become demotivated. So I think the initial question is more important than we actually realize. Yeah, Hannah.
I definitely agree, like, that setting some boundaries is useful. And I'm just reflecting on times that I've been involved in these when I've walked away feeling like it was helpful and when I've walked away feeling like it wasn't. And I definitely think and this probably is just very specific to my arena, when I'm doing these exercises, I never take too long with them. It's always like, top of your head right now, let's go, really quick, done, move on. And because this system mapping exercise has got to be light touch, because it's only a moment in time. It's only based on the people in the room there, and we can't take it too seriously. The more time we spend on it, the more investment, the more serious we take it. I've seen people wandering around with these and using them in their slide decks for far too long after, because it took a long time and a lot of pain to get it done. And I think that we drive how it's used based on how we approach it. And so I would always make it really light, almost sort of cut it off as well, and be like, done, moving on. Just, even if people want to carry on, just because it's not that serious. It's just the beginning of a journey or something like that.
Awesome. Yeah, maybe there can be, I think, a whole session in itself. What can we, the experiences of the process and the experience of what works or what worked for you and what didn't work, and then we can start getting to some type of support kind of session for people who are in the very beginning or the people who are very experienced and so forth. So since we have 2 minutes, I will just close off the session just by first thanking you all for being here. It's been, again, great to have these conversations. And yeah, we don't really have a very, very specific structure to these. We really want the conversations and the discussions. That's why it's an open discussion, right? So we have 2 more of these until the end of the year. And we'll just go back to it. No. We have the transition design coming up, and then we have ecosystems building last. And these are going to be the last 2 open discussions of the year. And just to remind you that we have an interview coming up on January 16th about complexity, making sense and making waves, a book by Jean Bolton, talking about the Tao of complexity, bringing different ancient traditions and knowledges and merging into complexity, which is going to be very, very interesting. So really recommend you coming to participate in the interview. And we have our December Christmas dinner. If you are in Bristol, please come and join us. It's going to be very, very good. And we're going to play games and have a good time and eat food, which is very important. So if you are around, please come. And we have our book club starting in January. Every 2 weeks, we have a session where we discuss one chapter of a book, and it's always very fun and very engaging. People are very, very good. So yes, please join. And that's it, everyone. This is the link for the Bristol Hub. As you can see, we have a lot of events coming up. Make sure that you ask questions and comments in the Bristol Hub space as well. And that's it for today. The discussion on systems mapping. And see you on our next session on transition design. All right. Cool. Thank you. And see you then.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.